Good evening. This is Maestro Cotella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Greentooth Gorge. Our first player is Tyger, playing as the Chaos Lord. This is a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor, starts out with a demon sword as well as a combi bolter. Does just like a little bit of melee damage, a little bit of range damage to start out, and he can disrupt with Kill the Weak. His opponent is another Chaos hero. This one is Torpid, playing as the Sindri Trollface Chaos Sorcerer. This is a spell-casting hero with some spells for damage, manipulation, and control. Alright then, so we're back in action. Of course, things have been a little bit slow lately, but I got a nice 1v1 here between two very, very good players of Dawn of War 2. Tyger, I would argue to say that Tyger's a legend in Dawn of War 2. He's certainly a known good player among people who know the good players in Dawn of War 2. Although I'd say for probably the past 1 or 2 years he's been relatively inactive. And I usually assume that he had kind of like quit or just stopped playing. But then every once in a while he will pop up. And my guess for what happens is that he doesn't play that much anymore, but he will show up, I'm guessing, just when good players are hosting a lobby, they need a good player to play with, and they'll just like hit up Tyger. And I think my guess is in those situations, when a good player is asking him to play, then he will actually play the game. I think other times when he plays the game are when he's been drinking and he's drunk. And Tyger is a Chaos Lord player. He's definitely one of the better, if not one of the best Chaos Lord players that have played Dawn of War 2. In my memory of like the Dawn of War 2 competitive scene, Vindicare was at one point the best Chaos Lord player. And a lot of the other really good players have had good Chaos Lords like Holy Hammer, Toilali, and Tyger has definitely mained the Chaos Lord, and I would venture to say he's, again, one of the best Chaos Lords. And my memory of him is also being rather aggressive with that Chaos Lord. And so I think of Tyger as like a mainstay, formerly a mainstay in the Dawn of War 2 community. I've definitely seen his name like in tournament matches and stuff, along with names like Holy Hammer, Tex, Noisy. Torpid, on the other hand, is a slightly different beast. Torpid is, well, first, he's certainly an extremely good player, and certainly a match for someone like Tyger. Torpid, at one point, really broke out in a tournament match. I think it was Monthly Rumble Tournament number 13. I believe he beat Noisy, and then went on to face Holy Hammer in the finals. And he was probably not the expected person to make it to the finals, but he was there. And he, unfortunately, was defeated by the Hammer. But he still had a very, very impressive showing, and he can definitely beat people like Tex. I think he says he often beats Tex, although that might have been when Tex practiced a little less and when Torpid played a little bit more. So Torpid's also a young guy, and I feel like he's almost like more up and coming, to the extent that we have like up and coming in Dawn of War 2. Actually, if anything, I'd say he's not up and coming anymore. I'd say he has come, and well, no sexual innuendos, but he is a very good player, a young player. And this matchup we have right here, we have the Chaos Lord versus the Sorcerer. Now, in my personal experience, I have personally had trouble fighting Chaos Lords with the Sorcerer. And, you know, to be honest, I'm not sure how much of that is the matchup and how much of it is, well, you know, just me and my own personal weaknesses. But I've generally struggled with it in part because of, well, just some of the typical struggles with the Sorcerer. The Sorcerer generally struggles with tanky melee heroes, since the starting composition for Chaos usually doesn't provide a lot of early range damage. And to the extent that you can get early range damage with the Sorcerer, it's a little bit more, or Chaos in general, it's a little bit more expensive than it would be for other heroes. So in this case, I think to solve this problem, Torpid has actually gone for a double Chaos Space Marine build. He's gone double Chaos Space Marines, put Eternal War on both of them. So this is a rather wreck-heavy build. And between these two players, right now Torpid's actually doing pretty well. He's been able to deal with the Chaos Lord, but I believe he's also invested a few more resources up front. This Chaos Lord just might go down. Close call, he does go down though, so that's a good early kill for Torpid that could definitely helped to just hand him this game. But I've personally found it a little tricky getting overrun by the Chaos Lord since he is rather tanky, and once he gets in range with a Chaos Space Marine squad, they will be tied up and they will just be in a losing engagement. So Torpid, meanwhile, although he's gone double Chaos Space Marine and double Heretic, and I feel like that's not a terribly common build for the Sorcerer, but I think there are times when it's appropriate. Double Heretics usually considered pretty useful in 1v1 in general. Double Chaos Space Marine usually a less common build in 1v1, but again, I feel like in particular, he might need it to deal with the Chaos Lord. So we do see some Eternal War upgrades from Tyger as well. One of the other strengths that I typically feel of the Chaos Lord, well, both in general and in this matchup, is that usually the Chaos Lord is the better hero at teching faster and getting to tier 2 faster. On average, I feel that the Chaos Lord gets to tier 2 faster than the Sorcerer does. And I think with the resource investment that Torpid has had in his squads, because he had the wreck-heavy purchases of getting the 2 Chaos Space Marines early, his generators have been coming down later. Like, this generator just finished, and this one is still building, and he doesn't even have a third on this one. Meanwhile, Tyger has had the full farm for a while, although in this particular game he's also had, he lost some generators as well. Although it still does appear that Tyger is ahead. He's ahead in tech and VPs. Now, the Sword of Flame is an interesting choice in this matchup. I actually feel the Sword of Flame could potentially be a good choice for actually dealing with the Chaos Lord. And that's almost, it almost doesn't make sense, and yet it does. Because the Sorcerer, in a head-to-head fight, he is going to lose to the Chaos Lord. No matter what, he's going to lose to the Chaos Lord. With or without the Sword of Flame, he will lose to the Chaos Lord. But sometimes you just have situations where the Chaos Lord will be chasing after units like the Chaos Space Marines, trying to kite them, tie up the range damage, and then the Sorcerer will actually be chasing after the Chaos Lord to do damage to him. And we're going to see the Chaos Lord go down again. And if the Sorcerer is like chasing down the Chaos Lord and getting those hits with that Sword of Flame, he's doing something like actually almost twice as much damage with the Sword of Flame than he would be doing with his starting sword. His starting sword doing 30 DPS, the Sword of Flame doing 44.29 melee DPS, but then there's also the additional piercing DPS over time that comes from just the flame effect of the sword. Which, not just against the Chaos Lord, but actually against really anything. The Sword of Flame makes the Sorcerer just much, much more powerful and gives him just a lot more killing power. Like, the Sorcerer, he just gets much, much more experience and levels and kills when he has the Sword of Flame than when he doesn't. He's also got the Sigil of the Rift, of course, kind of it's actually at this point pretty much the textbook answer to any suppression team. And look at the tech lead that Tyger has. Torpid is not even in Tier 2 yet. He can start Tier 2 now. Tyger is already building a Blood Crusher. The Blood Crusher has had a cost decrease in this patch. It's now only 250 requisition and 60 power. You know, personally, I don't feel that's a terribly big deal. I mean, it's actually, well, it's just really cheap, and we are talking about a unit that is usually very time sensitive, very situational, and usually will not last to the end of the game almost no matter what. Like, Blood Crushers almost never live to the end of the game. They rarely even make it to Tier 3. They are usually a unit that at some point will die. And that is one of the hard choices of getting something like a Blood Crusher, because you get it kind of knowing that at some point in the game it's probably going to die. And even if it doesn't die, it's probably going to reach a point in the game when it will kind of outlast its usefulness. And that's really contrasted with many other squads. Certainly the other Tier 2 purchases for Chaos, most of those can last into Tier 3. That's a very nice potential retreat kill, and does it. Very nice, but now he needs to get the Heretics out of there. He's going to lose the Heretics. I think a bit of slow reactions. And I like what I saw there. I've done things like that myself. Use the Warp Global to teleport a Heretic squad into a retreat path, and then, you know, use it to wipe a squad. It works. I've done it before. Just one of the Sorcerer's many tricks. Unfortunately, Torpid there, actually, ultimately, despite getting that Havoc kill, he really came out on the worst end of that engagement. And I'm not entirely sure why. I think he really just overstayed his welcome. So Blood Crusher at this point right now is completely uncontested, so it can actually bash like without any support whatsoever. So these are some high-level players. Right now, these are some of the best players in the game. However, this has also been a very sloppy game so far. And I mean, it's a sloppy game, even though these are high-level players and some of the best players in the game. But I have at times said that even though these are high-level players, they probably aren't as good as they could be if Dawn of War 2 was a more popular game with a more active competitive scene and just more players, period, playing in tournaments. The skill level of any given game can actually evolve many times over the course of several years, but you really need an active competitive scene to help that develop. And our good players are good, but I actually feel like they're probably not even like at their full potential. And I think even a lot of the good players will agree with me there. I think Torpid himself is one person who would probably agree with that. And I'd say one of the players who has really pushed that has been Holy Hammer. Since I think Holy Hammer has been very competitive and not just winning in Dawn of War 2, but in other games. He's been competitive in Company of Heroes, possibly other games for all I know. Looks like we're going to see a full bash on Torpid's power. And Tyger already going to Tier 3. Torpid not looking like he's going to Tier 3 anytime soon. He's actually spending a lot of resources on reinforcements, I think. Or upgrades. Yeah, he's getting Aspiring Champions on his Chaos Space Marines. They do not have any Mark upgrade. Neither does Tyger's, however. VPs are very even right now. Although Tyger's got the double cap, but he's going to lose it soon. And this is actually something that I have also personally found to be a struggle with the Sorcerer. And again, I don't know how much of it is... It's always hard to distinguish, like, how much of it is just my weakness and how much of it is, like, actually a legitimate concern for the character. And I've often found that it can be difficult to keep up in tech, not just in the tech race to Tier 2, but throughout the whole game. And I've often found myself in a lot of situations where I'm still in Tier 2 and not looking to go to Tier 3 anytime soon, and then suddenly my opponent has a tank out on the field, and I can't even believe it. And I just somehow got to deal with it. Now, Tyger, very interestingly, he went to Tier 3 and he's bought a Chaos Space Marine squad. I actually understand it because he really had a big surplus of requisition with not a huge amount of power. So he could really just very quickly put out this squad of Chaos Space Marines out on the field, just kind of improve his field effectiveness, give him a lot of range DPS to match Torpid a bit. Without actually cutting into possible Tier 3 purchases, because even for the really much more expensive Tier 3 purchases, like the Land Raider Phobos or the Great Unclean One, what a Doom Bolt's pretty nice, Tyger would still have to wait on the power. Like, he had the requisition to buy something like a Great Unclean One, but he did not have the power for it. Chaos Lord, meanwhile, running around only with the Combi Flamer right now, so he's doing a lot of range damage, and I was wondering if those Chaos Space Marines were going to go into the building, but then the Chaos Lord would just flame them right out with the Immolate ability. So VP is actually still very, very even, but things are looking pretty dire for Torpid as far as the tech situation, because Tyger, looking like he's ready to get either a Great Unclean One or a Phobos. It looks like he's saving up for that because he's got the resources to buy anything else, but he hasn't. He could even get Chaos Terminators, but it really looks like he has his eyes either on a Phobos or a Great Unclean One. Torpid, meanwhile, stuck in Tier 2, getting a Chaos Dreadnought. And I've again found myself in situations like this, getting a Chaos Dreadnought, even when my opponent is in Tier 3. Because I just need something like kind of powerful, something that does AV damage, but it's also a vehicle itself. But this is still very problematic, because the Chaos Dreadnought, although it can be very, very good, it ultimately isn't a match for something like a Land Raider Phobos or a Las Cannon Predator. Those things will ultimately overtake the... Ooh, we're going to see the end of this Blood Crusher, though. There we go. Since the Chaos Dreadnought, as a walker, it's a slow unit, so it's generally going to get outrun or outdriven by something like a Predator, which can always just chase after it if it's ever in a bad situation. Whereas a Predator can always just drive away from the Chaos Dreadnought because of its speed. There have been some changes to many of these units. The Chaos Dreadnought now, I believe, maybe it was the burst duration of the heavy bolter on the Dreadnought, which you can hardly see. There's a heavy bolter mounted like right there to the right of the skulls, and I believe the burst duration was increased, meaning it's gonna. I believe it's gonna do a bit more damage. I think the splash damage on the autocannon has also been changed, and probably in a way that is going to be a buff for the autocannon Dreadnought. I think at one point there was talk of a actual damage buff to the autocannon. I don't know if that actually went through, but we apparently also have sound effects for that. Yeah, we have sound effects for the bolter on the Dreadnought. It's actually a Storm Bolter sound. I wonder if it's also a Storm Bolter on the Dreadnought. I always thought it was a Heavy Bolter. It even seems like the animation has been changed, because I remember before the firing animation would come out from both sides, and now it's just coming out from like one side, or it would come out like center. Ooh, double Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines out of Tyger. Unfortunately, Torpid right now... So, Tyger's got the Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines with no Aspiring Champion, but even though Torpid's Chaos Space Marines have the Aspiring Champion, the Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines will pretty heavily outshoot them. They're just going to win. Just with the damage modifiers... the damage modifiers of Inferno damage, they're just going to be way better in a head-to-head ranged fight than Torpid's unmarked Chaos Space Marines. Here is the Land Raider Phobos, and again, something like, if the Land Raider Phobos gets into range of the Dreadnought is pretty screwed. And it actually seems like Tyger's actually focusing more on the Havocs that were capturing the point to try to force them off. I think he would have, well, he could have attempted to go for the Dreadnought. Dreadnought right now in a really bad position. If this Land Raider Phobos just gets a little more aggressive and can face both las cannons so that they both target, it will just be doing a huge amount of damage to the Chaos Dreadnought. Chaos Dreadnought has lost half of its health, and like Torpid's in a tough situation where the Chaos Dreadnought is one of his main sources of AV at the moment, and it's really no match at all for the Land Raider Phobos. And right now he's just kind of getting lucky that the Land Raider Phobos' attention was taken away by something else. Tyger, meanwhile, it does look like he lost he lost a squad of heretics. I didn't see where that happened. Torpid, meanwhile, stuck in tier 2, and he's got a composition that there's not a whole lot to actually threaten the Land Raider Phobos. The main thing is this las cannon Havoc. And sometimes, as a Sorcerer player, I also find myself in difficult situations where I'm often relying sometimes only one AV unit to deal with whatever vehicle threats my opponent's going to put out. So Tyger right now, Tyger has suffered some losses himself, and again, this hasn't been a very smooth game for either player, to be honest. They've both suffered there have definitely been a little bit of sloppy plays. So las cannon is setting up. The Phobos is inside the firing arc. It can always drive behind. There should be a line of sight blocker. It's also being worshipped by heretics, so it should be able to get out a little bit faster. Ooh, we actually have the Khorne Dreadnought upgrade for the Chaos Dreadnought, which is actually not too surprising at all. I've had some talks with Torpid, and he feels very much that the Khorne Dread, particularly in combination with the Sorcerer, is pretty overpowered. And I mean, it kind of is, because the Warp Global from the Sorcerer really mitigates the main weakness of the Chaos Dreadnought. I wonder if it's on cooldown, though, because he hasn't teleported out yet. Instead, he actually takes out the Chaos Dreadnought. He may have actually used the Warp Global. No, I'm wrong. I was wondering if he had used it to... No, he did, because the Sorcerer is down here dead. And finally the Land Raider Phobos exploded. So that was quite a play. So I think he actually used the Warp Global to teleport the Havocs to a dead Sorcerer, and then actually finish the Land Raider Phobos off with that. So wow, aggressive play to finish off the Land Raider Phobos. Quite amazing. Meanwhile, Chaos Terminator's out for Tyger. Interesting purchase. I don't know. Right now the Chaos Dreadnought is going to counter the Chaos Terminators. They will be able to do some damage to it, but man, this Chaos Dreadnought is also doing a ton of damage. Took out a Terminator model, and it's going to go down, but it did a lot of damage. Actually, I'm not even sure if it'll go down. It probably will. It's getting repairs from the Heretics, and the Terminators teleport out because they lose 2 of their models, and this Dreadnought is actually going to get out of there alive. Wow. Quite a play. Yeah, I didn't feel too good about that Terminator purchase, even though, or at least not them directly engaging the Chaos Dreadnought at that time. Even though the Chaos Terminators, they will do heavy melee damage with their Power Fists. The Chaos Dreadnought, when Blood Rage is active, it gets a damage resistance, it also gets a damage buff. So it's doing a huge amount of damage, not taking a whole lot. So it's risky business, to say the least. And I think this squad could be in trouble. Yeah, this squad is in quite a bit of trouble. Alright, we didn't see the Heretics try to swarm that squad of Chaos Space Marines. Probably wouldn't have wiped them anyway, although I think one model could have been taken off that squad. Alright, so Torpid looking to get a double cap, or is he? Tyger's moving out his Heretics onto... Ooh, what's going on right here? Ooh, so we got a Summoning Circle Global from Torpid to try to delay this cap. It's enough to actually just... Wow, another Warp Global from the... using that dead Sorcerer to warp things right to him, and then just warp units right to him. Right. So that time he was actually able to warp the Dreadnought, put it in the retreat path of a squad of Heretics. Needs to be careful. Here is a Bloodlust Global, but, you know, if the Dreadnought's going to Blood Rage and target the Terminators, this is not looking like it's going that well. So Terminators, they actually teleport out, but now they're up against Heretics. The Heretics are tying them up so they can't do their ranged AV damage, and they're losing models. Terminators right now, unfortunately, really not performing that well, and yeah, I didn't really feel like they were the best choice. I mean, he's lost so many Terminator models already, especially Torpid now with the Tzeentch Chaos Space Marine upgrades. He's got the dual Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines. And those are actually going to do a huge amount of damage to the Chaos Terminators. And now it's really Tyger who's actually struggling for AV. And the Chaos composition is generally a little... It's weird. It's not quite as flexible as the composition for many other races. Your AV choices aren't quite as convenient. And to actually get, like... Oh, wow, and the Terminator died trying to teleport out of there. As it is, the Chaos Dreadnought might finally go down here, but it has already done so much to the point where Tyger is calling a GG. And the game is still going here, but I think Tyger is, like, not even caring about his unit. Says he got cocky with the Land Raider, and that's the game. This Dreadnought absolutely killed so many things. Interesting game. Again, a little bit sloppy on both ends, to be honest, although actually the late game by Torpid was actually pretty exceptional. That push with the Land Raider, with the Dreadnought rather, to take out the Land Raider, as well as the teleport to the Sorcerer was quite amazing. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.